So in this video we're going to be looking at constructors, and in the last video we looked at read and write functions. And a constructor is basically just a function that runs as soon as we deploy the contract to the blockchain. So when we create a constructor and deploy our contract, as soon as our contract gets deployed, the constructor will run and then the contract will become available to use. So to do this we just use the keyword constructor, and we add our opening and closing parentheses and then our curly braces, and in here we put the code that we want to run as soon as we deploy the contract. So let's not assign a value to mynum here, and let's assign it in the constructor. We can say mynum is equal to 25, and if we save this and deploy our contract, we should now see that if we view mynum, it's 25 by default. So this is just a quick video. One more thing I can show you before we end this is if we have an address variable here called owner. This is a common thing that people do. So inside of the constructor we can set owner equal to message.sender. So the way this works is, oh, I forgot the semicolon there. So the way this works is we created an address called owner, and we're setting the owner address equal to message.sender, and this message.sender will be the address of the person who deploys this contract, so our wallet address. And it's just giving some errors here because I deleted the mynum variable. So yeah, this constructor will set the owner variable we created to the wallet address of the person who deploys this contract. And in future videos we'll look at how we can make it so that functions can only be run by the person who deployed the contract. But for now, let's just make this owner variable public so that we can see it. And if we save this and deploy the contract again, we should now see this owner variable here, and if we click on it, it will give us the address of the wallet we used to deploy this contract. We're going to be looking at modifiers, and we've created this owner variable which holds the address of the person who deployed this contract. And let's make it so that only the owner of this contract can run the increase num function. So to do this we want to say modifier, and we'll call this only owner. And we add in our parentheses here and then our curly braces, and inside of this modifier we want to use the keyword require. So this is basically an if statement in Solidity, and what it will do is if this condition is true, it will continue running the code, but if it's false, it will just not run this increase num function and revert the transaction. So the condition we want to check here is if message.sender, so this is the person who's calling the function, is double equals to owner. And you'll see we still get an error here. That's because we need to add one more line to modifiers, and that's just an underscore. So basically what this underscore does is if this evaluates to true, this underscore means it will run the rest of the code in the function we apply this modifier to. So if this underscore wasn't here, it would just exit once it passes this require. And to actually use this modifier, after public on the increase num function, we'll just type only owner. So now we're applying this modifier to this function. And just to go over it one more time, when this function is called, or when any function is called actually, we have this object called message.sender, and that's just the address of the person who called the function, so which wallet address called it. And then we have this variable called owner, which is the address of the person who deployed this contract. We set it in the constructor, and using this only owner modifier, we're checking if the person who called the function is the same as the owner, and if that's not true, this require will fail and we won't move on to the next functions. So now let's deploy this and see if it works. We can see that the number is 0 by default, and if we click on increase num, it should be 1 now. But if we change the wallet address that we're using and try to call this increase num, you can see that we get a revert here, so the transaction failed. And if we view the num, it's still at 1. So no matter how many times we click this, it's going to stay at 1. But if we switch back to the same address that deployed the contract, we can run this function as many times as we want and it will update the number. So this is an easy way to set up only owner, but there's actually a better way by importing a different contract, but we haven't talked about importing yet, so we'll look at that in future videos.